So, what I wanted to talk about today, in the spirit of Christian education, is making the sign of the cross. And you see that we make the sign of the cross often in church, and just in case you're wondering how to do it, we have these three fingers here. And did anyone want to take a guess at what these three fingers represent? Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. What are these two fingers doing over here? Two natures of Christ. Why? Whoever was your Sunday school teacher, they get a gold medal. So we have the two natures of Christ, and we have the three fingers. Now, what's interesting is, in the olden days, it was actually done like this. So you had the Trinity down here, and then you had the cross being formed with the fingers. They also said that these represent the two natures of Christ, and this was his divine nature, and then his human nature, sort of the bent one. But that one eventually got them to do it this way. I think it just got too complicated, so they said, this one's easy. We can teach kids to do it. Let's all do this one. And so we have these three fingers, and we always start with our head because we love the Lord with all our mind and all of our heart. And, it usually goes somewhere down here. Sometimes it ends up in your stomach, and that's where some people think, so it's a good connection. All our mind, all our heart. And then we go over to the right shoulder and all our strength. We love that. That's the two shoulders here. And we always end up on the heart side. And you'll see, actually, sometimes you can see people give a little tap on the heart afterwards, just to emphasize that. Well, we love the Lord with all our mind, with all our heart, with all our strength. And this represents the sign of the cross. And, we do it all the time. Sometimes we even do it, we don't think about it. We have certain places that we always just do it, like whenever we go to church and everything else. You find it if you're in a church mentality. You might walk into an office building and make the sign of the cross. Why do they do that? You're going into the door, you're kind of used to that. But it's an idea that, we use it when we say the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. And then you notice when you cross this median line here, people stop to make the sign of the cross. And they know why. It's because of the gospel. The gospel. It's actually it has to do with the presence of the center of the Orthodox altar is at the center of our table is the gospel book. And so that's why when we do service, if we move the gospel book out here, this becomes the center of the service. We don't move the tabernacle with the gifts. In the West, in the Catholic Church, it is the reserved sacrament that they have is in their tabernacle, and that is the center part of their altar. But in the Orthodox Church, it's the presence of gospel books. We always stop and we make the sign of the cross whenever we pass through here. So the question then is why do we do this? Can't we just think about it? Where a pen comes in handy. And now you're going to see why I'm a priest and not a professional artist. I'm going to try to make a straight line. I've been practicing all week. Okay. This is a triangle, and this represents not the Trinity. This represents human beings. And human beings are made in there's three elements that make up human being. And the first element is the body. The body is part of who we are. We do not believe that, for example, a human being was sort of like there's this wonderful little light bubble floating around called soul, and then somebody took it and stuck it in a body. The body and the soul and eventually we'll get to the third part, are all created together at the moment of conception. They're united as one. All of these elements make up a single person. In other let's say, religious ideas. They have this idea that, well, the souls pre-exist and God made them separately and He puts them in a body. We don't buy that. So here's the body, our physical manifestation of ourselves. The second element is the soul. This is the energy driving force of our bodies, and it is also where our minds come into play here. The body experiences what? Senses: smell, touch, taste, sight, and then all of those things get routed to the soul, to the mind, and we think about it and go, oh, it's Aunt Gertrude, give her a hug. Or it's a guy with a meat cleaver, run. Right? The mind then tells the body, run, Forrest, run. And the body does it. You're with me on this. Some people are giggling, so I know that they're the ones that are awake. I haven't put you to sleep yet. Keep that way, please. So the body and the soul are again part of this human person, part of who we are. There's the third element, and this is our spirit. And this is the means by which we are connected to God. This is our spiritual element. And in our society, this is really undervalued. Okay? We tend to look at religion, for example. People come to church because they get a certain physical response from it. We call that what? Emotions. Right? They go to church to get happy. You ever seen those pictures of people? Maybe you've been to those churches before. People like really, they start jumping, and now there's like people who actually take videos of those things, and they send the rock music and put them up on there, and you can watch people kind of jumping up and down. It's kind of interesting. But that's a physical emotion. Okay, that's not a spiritual experience. Now there are other people that their faith, their connection to God, is an intellectual one. They like to think about God. They like to have godly thoughts. They like big, thick books on theology. And therefore, their process is much more about, let's say, a dogmatic approach. However, when we're talking about God, there are certain things that just are not expressed in, that we can't put words on. We can't stick a label on it. And this is where we begin to get into the Spirit. The Spirit is that means by which we are connected to God, and it brings about this unity of our person, so that we experience God in our totality. So therefore, in church, when we're talking about things involving the church, it's not just about that I come to church to smell incense, okay? And it's not just an experience because, well, that priest is kind of a lousy preacher, but I can kind of put up with it because I appreciate the theology of the church. It's supposed to be an all-encompassing act of coming to church in which all parts of us are involved. And this is why the body is just as involved in worship as our minds and our spirits. You know, because we are in a fallen state, these things don't work together very well. Okay? Our spirits are cut off from God, and this is that we're trying to restore that. But when that is cut off, the grace is not flowing down. The body is looking for pleasure, it turns to the soul. The soul is looking for pleasure, it turns to the body. Everything is a big mess. And so sometimes, for example, our minds tell us, I don't want to go to church today. It's ugly. I've heard that a couple of times in my house. A couple of times I think I said it even. But, you know, then there's other times where the body just doesn't want to get out of bed in the morning. Okay? The mind says, yeah, I want to be there. The body says, no. When we make the sign of the cross, we are tying together, we are recognizing, we're acknowledging that we are a complete person. we're involving our bodies, our minds, and our spirits. It is tying together all of these various things. It's tying them up. It's drawing them together. Like there's in some of the hymnody of the church, it talks about Christ's arms outstretched on the cross, and he draws the world to himself. We are drawing ourselves together. When we hear the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit, we're drawing that in, and we're bringing ourselves into unity the way that we're supposed to be. It's a way also of drawing us into focus. You see, our daily experience of who we are is in little bits and pieces. Sometimes I think about my back because it hurts, and then I think about what I'm not going to do for dinner this evening, and then I'm doing that. And our minds are scattered. Have any of you ever tried to meditate? Raise your hand. And you tried to meditate. Oh my goodness, 20 minutes, right? And you're millions of thoughts, right? They're all over the place. And then your body is telling you, I itch, I don't, can I get up, can I move this leg? We are scattered. And then, and this is the really annoying part, how many of you have had a situation where you came away and you were either angry or you were sad and you had no idea why? You have this all the time. Why am I so upset with this person? And you have to think about it for a while and go, oh yeah, this person reminds me of X and this and that. See, our perception of ourselves is scattered, is what the Fathers teach us. It's scattered here and there. And we don't focus. We don't focus. What we're called to do is bring all that scatteredness together into a unity. To be, this is called awareness. To be aware of who we are. What's really going on inside of us. What's going on around us? Who am I really dealing with? You see, if I'm not paying attention, okay, if I'm not paying attention to how things really are, I'm not going to be able to be fair to, let's say, Amir here, because I'm thinking about Amir. I knew a guy who looked just like you, and he beat me up and took my milk money, and so I'm not going to like you, and I'm going to treat you bad. But he didn't do that. But if I forget that, he's a different person. If I become scattered because all my being is disrupted, I'm going to miss out. So when we come into the church and we're making that sign of the cross, part of it is to focus ourselves on what's really supposed to be going on. That we are here for God. We are here to be with God. We are here to offer God our bodies, our souls, and our spirit. That we lay aside, as the liturgy says, we lay aside all earthly care, everything else except what is needful. We need to work on that, because the less aware we are, the more problems that we're going to run into. And then, what do you think starts happening when we're not aware of things? We start committing sins. Because when we're sinning, we're going against the way things are. And we wouldn't do that if we really saw what was going on. Because if we become very aware and our system is functioning the way it is supposed to, who do we become aware is present? God. When we come into church and we're not aware that this is God's house, we're going to have problems. We're going to forget why we're here. We forget that He's always watching us. And then ultimately, this is the biggest tragedy of it all, is if we forget God enough, then we'll begin to forget that He really loves us. And then when we get into trouble, boy, are we in trouble, right? Where is God right now? Where is He? Just down here a second ago. Wait a minute. I forgot. I must have left Him in the car. We must always be aware. And so the church gave us this gift of the sign of the cross to wake us up, to help us focus on what's real. That God is here. He's not only on this side of me making the sign of the cross, He's also on the other side of it too. That God dwells within you. closer than your own skin. And He loves you. Because that's why we do this. We don't do this out of fear. We don't do this out of just going through the motions of what we do to other people. We do this, we should do this, out of love. So, that is all about signing the cross. I bet you didn't think that it was that involved. I didn't. But it is. It is a tying together of our